3, 2, 1. Enjoy the ride.
Hey, welcome back to A Faster Me. This is the Tour de Murrieta, stage 1. This is the women's 345 and Masters 35 plus crit. Doing a little something different this time. I'm going to just try to break down the film a little bit technically and just analyze Ellen's racing. She's going to be here to, answer questions or anything like that if I have any. But this is the second video of this same race, so we're just going to run through it real quick. And we wanted everyone to see that basically every race there's more than one race going on. The first film that we released was the video featuring Marlena, and because there's a split in the Peloton at some point, Marlena's race is very different from, say, Ellen and the rest of the girls' race. There was only 8 girls in that first group, or 8 women in that first group. So that's basically the perspective of those 8 in the first video. And this is the perspective from basically the second group or the rest of the riders in the race. So as you can see, Ellen's off to a great start. She's going around Aurelia right here. It's good to see her back out there racing as well. And then there's a little gap that Ellen has to close here. And it's kind of two things here. Like, one, she could either use a lot of power and close the gap fast, or she can try to, set a steady, hard pace and kind of close it gradually. I did a crash breakdown film of this course last year in this turn, and as you can see, the women are taking much better lines now from the, approaching that turn from the outside. Everyone kind of calls it crash corner, which historically that's where it's been. Almost every crash in Tour de Murrieta has been in that corner. This year we had a couple unique spots. This one coming out of that corner there, and then after turn 1, which both of those are unique spots. But for the most part, yeah, that's the corner that everyone has trouble with at the end of that back straight. So yeah, I think it was the Encycle Mommies got out to a really hard start just to kind of stretch the field out, and I think they were trying to get Heather in a breakaway early, which they did, and then the rest of the group was kind of chasing at that point. So here's kind of back together, and if you see as Melissa passed Ellen right there, she had a little bit more urgency to get on the wheel. So I think just from a kind of technical standpoint, Ellen could have had a little more urgency just to get back to a wheel and save some energy, and now she's kind of forced out here in the wind on her own. So the race is kind of settling a little bit. It's kind of a technical course, but it is still fairly fast. So as Ellen moves up to the front, another attack goes off the left side. And I say this in pretty much all my videos. Anytime the pace slows down, there's going to be an attack. Someone's going to attack. And they were down to 20 miles per hour or 19 miles per hour for a second, and then an attack was launched. There's Autumn Bay to the inside right there. Autumn's a really strong rider as well. And I kudos to her for staying in her drops. I always used to talk about that a lot, about who's in their drops and who's on their hoods, and you just get a little better control of the bike when you're in your drops, and you get obviously a little bit more aero position as far as your upper body being lower. I know technically on the hoods you can make yourself more aero, but you also have a little bit less control, and it takes a lot of experience to just ride on the hoods and still have control on your bike. I know a lot of people see the pro riders do it, or even the P1, 2, 3 fields here locally, but it's different. It's not the same as you doing it as a relatively new rider. It's not the same amount of skill level or control. Ellen does a great job here of carrying speed and going around the outside. She was able to do that because Autumn slowed down a little bit for that corner, and Ellen made up a lot of ground here just in those 2 turns of being able to carry speed. And that's one of the benefits of going through turns single file. And for the most part, races would be a lot smoother and a lot safer and a lot faster if they were stretched out like this and going through the turns single file. But it's very hard to do that, and without rider cooperation or a number of people dedicated to keeping the speed fast but manageable, it's almost impossible to do. So there's Marlena, just flies up the inside of Ellen there, and Autumn's following her. But so Marlena kind of has a little bit of a cheat code because Marlena has she has loads of power. She's really powerful. She can produce a lot of watts for a long time, and she has a kind of unique blend of being able to sustain high watts. Like, she's pretty good at running TTs, and she's starting to become a better sprinter. So usually those two things don't match, but if you can put those two things together, you'll be very dangerous in pretty much any race. So it looks like they're all back together again. I'm not sure if Heather's off the front or not, because obviously we don't have that perspective. But if I remember from watching the race on the sidelines, there might be one in Cycle Mommy still off the front right now. So here I would say, yeah, like you see Ellen move to the left side here. She's trying to get a better angle for this turn. And I think that would have been a benefit to the group to do that as well. If you take it from the right side, there's one of two things. You either have to slow down to take the turn, or what they really should do if they take it tight like that is run it out to the left-hand side of the road, and you won't have to scrub speed as much. I think sometimes people lose sight of what kind of the objective is in racing or taking race lines, and it's really, you want to be carrying the highest speed possible. You want to minimize the times where you're losing momentum. That not only keeps it safer and smoother, but it also saves energy. All the slowing down and then accelerating out of corners, those spikes really fatigue the legs. And at the same time, that it can also be a strategy for people if they want to force people to do that and have to slow down and accelerate. If you're built for it or if you've trained for it, it's an advantage. And if you haven't, it's definitely a recipe for disaster. Ellen, do you have any thoughts so far?
No, it's enjoyable to hear some of your commentary and just watch the race.
Yeah, so you guys are all back together again here. You're in a good draft position. I see Marlena moving up on the left side there, a little bit in the wind, but it looks like she's coasting, so she probably didn't have to use much energy. You guys are not going that fast either right now. You're down to 20 miles per hour, and I know when you have the speed up a little higher, you're usually coming through there around 25 or so. So it looks like the Peloton is taking a little breather, and for part of it, I know InCycle was on the front, kind of slowing it down, kind of dictating the pace there just to help their rider in the breakaway, which, every time someone does that, it takes a little bit of time before the rest of the riders in the Peloton realize that, hey, we have to go around them. They're not going to chase. They're not on the front to chase down their teammate. They're just letting their teammate get further and further away. And I think people need to start recognizing things like that sooner. I know, if you have a team or teammates, it's something somebody has to sacrifice. Some of those teammates have to sacrifice and put in that effort. And when you're out there riding solo, it's tough. And in the women's fields, they're so small that there's not a lot of teams out there. And, everyone's a little hesitant to give up a high finishing position or potential high finishing position and sacrifice themselves to run down breaks and things like that. And what happens is everyone just kind of sits in behind the people that are pulling, even though the people that are pulling have a teammate in the break, and they're not gonna set any high pace or anything to bring that back. So it's really just, you have a choice to make. You either can race for second, or someone has to sacrifice and get up there. So I know from Ellen's perspective, at one point she knew Marlena was kind of further back, and so far this year Marlena's having a good year, and she's currently like our lead rider. So Ellen's gonna try to do what she can to help her get into a better position. So you'll see, I think it's on the next lap, Ellen's gonna do a pretty big effort to get Marlena back up to the front. If that hasn't happened already, I may have missed it. So as you can see here, contrary to the last lap, they're coming through here at about 20 miles per hour. Now they're up to 26 on this front straight. And this is one of the things that you why you don't want to be in the back is once that acceleration happens, you can easily get caught out. And that looks like just a plain straightaway, but it's actually a false flat. It's uphill, to a degree, a couple percentage, maybe 2% total. But yeah, once you do that, for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever the case may be, it can be really taxing. There's a little gap that Lisa opened up right there, so Ellen has to go around that gap and close it. That's something that we've talked about many times. It's good to be in the draft, but if you're drafting someone that's starting to fade a little bit, you need to be able to recognize that and get around them as fast as possible. You can see varying lines here. The young lady from PRT goes a little wide to the right, and that obviously is not the proper line that you want to be on. It doesn't allow you to carry the most speed. And then here, everybody took a little bit wider approach, except Ellen this time, going up the inside. And as you can see, she has a spike a little bit coming out of that. So now that was Ashley to the left, and Marlena's here. And I think this is where Ellen tries to help to get her back up to the front after they get to the front straight. And this is something that, I wish more people would do, but there's not that many people, there's not that many teams out there that are willing to sacrifice for a teammate. And when you sacrifice for a teammate, that doesn't mean your teammate has a chance to win and you're going to come in second or third. That's not sacrificing. Truly sacrificing for your teammate means I'm going to get my teammate to the highest position possible, and I may not even technically finish the race. I'm going to do my job, and when my job is done, that's what I did. I'll finish if I can. I'll get the highest position that I can, but that's no longer a focus anymore. So right now, the effort that you see Ellen put in, if there's an attack right after this, she'd be in trouble of getting dropped. But that's not her focus. At this moment, her focus is getting her teammate up to the front, and she's going to do whatever effort it takes to get her up there. And if that means her race is over after that, that's just what it is. And I think that's the beauty and why I like working with the team that we have this year is it's selfless, and all of our people are willing to sacrifice like this.
Something I would just like to add is the benefit of practicing off the field. So I think, Marlena could have given me a little bit more instruction, or knowing how long I can hold that amount of watts would have been helpful to maybe push me even a little bit harder, because I could have gone a little bit harder if she was maybe directing that way. So I think the more you can practice off the field, the better it is.
Yeah, and it's good to know, a lot of people don't focus on these things, especially, when you train. So I coach Marlena, I coach Ellen, I coach a number of other people that are in our racing community. And when you know someone's watts, and I don't mean just their FTP, I mean, their 5-minute power, their 20-minute power, things like that. And especially if you have similar power profiles, then it makes it even a little easier, because you can tell by the watts you're doing how hard the person on your team must be going. If you're putting in 200 watts and you're on somebody's wheel, they're putting in a pretty good effort just by the watts that you're putting in. So, what Ellen was saying is 100% correct. When you train together and kind of know what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are, that benefits you even more. But I think the first step is you have to let go of some of that selfishness. It's just what it is. I mean, you join a team to be on a team. If you want to ride just for individual results, you probably shouldn't be on the team. That's the whole concept of being on a team. But most people are out there racing each other instead of racing as a team and putting that brand, putting that sponsorship up front or on the podium, or getting them the best recognition that they can get. So as you can see, even after Ellen put in that very hard effort, she still has a little bit of energy left, but now she's going to try to ride a wheel and recover a little bit as much as she can. I think it's Lana up there for Major Motion, and Jules right here for Major Motion. They're putting in a pretty good effort to try to run back the break. But, again, a little better communication here if they're working together, because Lana has a big gap. So technically, even though they're on the same team, Lana's putting in a hard effort and Jules is putting in a hard effort because she can't reach that draft. So I'm not knocking them or anything like that. It's just it makes no sense for two people on the same team to do the same effort. One of them has to slow down, give that person a draft, and they can like rotate through. As you can see, there's 4 major motion people here. They have to rotate through. And then Autumn comes through, and I thought, and I still think that Marlena's effort was incredible, but Autumn comes through and she puts in a very similar effort, very hard effort, probably even harder than Marlena's effort, because she has to do it for a few laps, and there's not a teammate that's helping her get up there. But Autumn eventually catches the breakaway, herself as well. She puts in a couple hard laps here, and she's going to be looking for help from Ellen to come through, but she's putting in such a hard effort that Ellen can barely catch onto her wheel, and she's not able to ride through. So that forces Autumn to just keep going and putting down her own power, and eventually she breaks away and runs down the front group by herself, and she's actually the 8th rider that joins that breakaway.
I did have some conflicting thoughts here of if I wanted to put in a really hard effort coming through, or if I didn't. So I didn't want to do like a 300 watt effort. Some of the corners were a little bit slower, but I didn't know if I should come through doing a really hard effort or just sit on her wheel. So and then at a certain point she was doing, like you said, a really hard effort. She was so strong on the straightaways, so she'd go like incredibly hard on the straightaways and slowed down pretty significantly in the corners. So yeah, like I said, I was just second guessing what I should do.
Yeah, and as you can see there, like Ellen started to go by her for a second, but Autumn's like determined, and so she accelerated again, and then she flicks the elbow there, so Ellen can try to come through. But yeah, so Autumn, I talked to her a little bit online after this weekend, and she can probably use a little bit of work on her cornering, and that's not a knock. I'm not saying anything that I didn't talk to her about, but she's incredibly strong. She's already won some races. She's out of Colorado, and as you can see, like she has a great motor. She can just keep going for a very long time. She's fairly new to the whole race scene, but yeah, she's been done some off-road like gravel type races and stuff like that. So it's a little different. They're not used to having all these tight, fast corners like crits do, and it's normal for people to not be the best at cornering when you first start racing. So once she gets to be smoother through the corners, you guys better look out. She's going to be a force to reckon with, and she's already strong, as you can tell. So Ellen's doing 290 watts. I have no clue what Autumn's doing, but obviously it's enough to where Ellen is struggling chasing her to just keep her wheel. She also has a very good low riding position. That takes a pretty strong core as well to be able to ride like this. She's not in her drops with her arms straight. As you can see, her elbows are bent. And Ellen again tries to come around her, and I don't think she's going fast enough. So there goes an attack off the front there, and that's a pretty good attack. But that kind of attack, if you're doing that, as you can see, the front group just turned left right there. So that type of attack is someone that's trying to bridge solo without taking the group with them, which is a great strategy, because if you're going to put in a hard effort, you don't want everyone just on your tail and bringing the Peloton back together. So when you want to bridge solo, that's the kind of effort you have to do. You have to fly by to where if anyone's going to jump on your wheel, they're going to really have to pay for it. As you can see now, those girls are passing like pretty fast. So Ellen and Autumn obviously faded a little bit right there. And there goes Autumn again. Like I told you, she has a great motor. She doesn't need much of a rest to recover. She probably only recovered for 5 seconds or so there before she's back on the gas again. And I think this is where she finally just snaps the elastic and bridges all the way up. And those are some great efforts. So the Peloton's only about 5 seconds in front. If we can, I'll point it out if we can see them before the next turn. Yeah, you can see them now. They're up there by the trees, and you'll probably be able to see them turn left, and that's the front group. That's the front 8 up there. Or I'm sorry, it's only 7 at this point, but they're I can't see them on the screen right now, but I think they just turned left. Or they're just turning left. Yep, you can see them right there. So they're right in front of the group. And that effort that Autumn put in and Ellen kind of helped with, that basically almost brought the entire breakaway back.
And just being off the back here slightly is how I missed Autumn attaching to the group. So just me being a little bit detached right here is enough to kind of make me miss what's going on, because I thought Autumn was still with our group. I had no idea that she bridged to the front.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone kind of did other than whoever's on the front right now, because if you remember from Marlena's video, it's like all of a sudden she popped up on the left-hand side. So yeah, I mean, like I said, that's a great job by Autumn, great motor. Yeah, I wish I had that type of like just power and stamina. Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, a great motor. So, and kudos to all the girls all the women in the race this year. Yeah, the lines are much better than they were a year ago. Last year, people were hugging that left side so tight, and it makes it very hard to make the turn there. Especially you either have to slow down or turn at a much steeper angle. And when you're going from asphalt to that kind of brick cobblestone back to asphalt, it's very easy for your tire to slip a little bit or to lose traction. So yeah, just a good pat on the back to everyone for learning and taking better lines this year. So kind of like we mentioned before, like the front group is just right in front right now. And, I hate to bring it up because it's over already, but, when they did the restart, they gave the front 8 girls a 1 minute start. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was about a 15-second lead. And we'll have on video a little bit here. Like the front group just turned a second ago. And now you can see there's people trying to chase it a little bit. So I believe on the next lap, you'll see it, where they're going to turn left in turn 1, and it's only about a 15-second lead before the crash. And I don't think it made any difference in the outcome, because 15 seconds is actually a long way in a 1 mile circuit. But yeah, it just definitely wasn't a 1 minute lead. That I don't think it was. And if it was, my apologies. I'm not really blaming the officials or knocking them. They did the best they could at that time. And at the time that they noticed there was a crash, there may have been a 1 minute lead at that point, but definitely wasn't a 1 minute lead at the actual time of the incident. As you can see here, when it's stretched out, everyone's taking much better lines, and that's how you run that right there. If you're going to run in tight, you're going to run to the left side. I would say also, though, once you go to the left side, just if you want to come back to the right, make it more gradual. Sometimes the turns are too abrupt. 1, it's scrub speed. 2, there could be someone behind you or next to you that you can't see. So after you come out of a turn, if you're taking the out approach, you gradually bring it back. So here's the out, there's the in, and then Ellen's running it out to the outside here. If you wanted to bring it to the left, you got to gradually go to the left, not swing to the left again. Oh, Jules almost hits the curb there, it looks like a little bit, or just ran into the gutter. I think she was trying to pass the young lady here that I believe she's getting lapped. So that's always sometimes a little scary moment. I'm vocal, you guys probably know I have a pretty loud voice, so I'm always vocal, and I just tell people, hey, stay wide or give me room, something to that effect, or I'm on your left, if I have to pass someone that's going a lot slower than I am. So I think there's a little separation here, and they're trying to get back up to the front. You can see the front group is just turning left right now. And then there's 2 riders right there turning. And then the rest of the group comes in and turns here. So it's really close. I know at one point Ellen and Ashley were trying not to bridge to the front because they didn't want to chase it down and bring everyone back when Marlena was in the break already. I explained this on Marlena's film, but because she was so outnumbered in the break, and we did have 2 teammates at the front of the chase group, and I remember it was down to about 4-second lead 4 or 5 second lead, and I remember yelling to Ellen and Ashley to go ahead and bridge because even though she's in a break, we'd rather have more teammates in the break. Just gives us a better chance of having someone finish, on the podium or with a high finish. So definitely they were doing a great job of trying to run down the front. So here again, if you're going to take it tight, you got to run it wide across the street there to keep maximum speed. And instead of swinging left here, when you make that swing left here, you have to scrub speed. Just anytime your bike's at a steeper lean angle, it's slowing down. It's kind of the same with motorcycles. I used to race motorcycles, and old school people used to teach coasting through the corner. I know a motorcycle is slightly different than a bicycle since we're using our own energy. However, when you ride a motorcycle and you go through a corner and if you coast, you're losing speed the whole time, and there's no way to actually hold your line because you're losing so much speed. So as on a motorcycle, when you dip it into a turn, you actually have to start slowly rolling on the throttle in order to maintain your line or to accelerate out, obviously. But even to just maintain the same line, you have to actually be giving gas to the motorcycle for it to hold a line, because if not, it's trying to slow down. And a bike is no different. When we go from upright to leaned over, it's going to cause more friction, a little bit bigger contact patch, and your bike's going to lose speed. So I believe that was Billy on the right there that Ellen just passed, putting in another pretty good effort trying to catch up to the group. If you can see, the breakaway is right there in front of them, maybe I don't even know if that's 100 yards because it's moving, but you can see the little shadow up there to the right. That's the breakaway. So as they're just about to turn left now, and there's the front group turning left in turn 1 right there. So this is probably I don't know, they were really close, and I remember yelling, just trying to get them to break, to bridge, but easier said than done, obviously. But they are giving it a shot. I can see Ellen's heart rate's up pretty high right here, so she's probably losing steam, and she probably should flick an elbow and get off the front just so she can recover. Ellen's max heart rate's just into the 170s, mid to high 170s, but haven't seen 180 in a few years, so I'm pretty sure it's just not that high anymore. But I think she's spending maybe a little bit too much time on the front and should share the workload a little bit now, especially as your heart rate gets high. You don't want to spend too much time on the front. Typically, if you spend this much time on the front and then someone attacks, you're going to get caught out. So you want to make sure that you have enough energy to respond to any attacks after your pull. So there she's finally off the front. Jules comes through. And then she slots back in, obviously. I think that's another good line by Ellen there. You typically now, when it's single file like this, for me, I don't stop pedaling. I pedal all the way through. Pedaling all the way through also saves a little energy. I know it may sound silly because you're pedaling opposed to not pedaling, but when you don't pedal, it forces you to spike again after, and it saves more energy to keep a smooth lower wattage than it does to spike up to 300, 400, 500 watts out of the corner after resting for a couple seconds. The group's still in touch up there. You can still see the break way up there in the distance, just a little cluster of riders. They're probably just about to turn right now. But it is that gap is starting to open a little bit. And there you can go, you just saw them turn left. And now you see people saying slow down. So just like I was saying, it definitely wasn't a 1 minute lead. It was just maybe 10, 15 second lead or whatever. So yeah, unfortunately, teammates in a crash and some of the friends in a crash. And, Ashley's kind of new to racing, so she asked, hey, do we stop? And Ellen tell her no, we keep going. And luckily, Marlena and Autumn and Renee were able to finish, and unfortunately, India wasn't able to finish, and had to go to the hospital to get some assistance or some attention to some of her injuries. So that crash obviously shakes people up, knocked everyone off a rhythm a little bit, but they're trying to regroup here and continue the chase. Especially on this section here, where it's the fastest section on the course, that previous turn, you definitely want to carry as much speed as possible. Because you'll see, like, at the fastest speeds, you'll be doing, I'm sorry, I'm not saying in general, I'm saying in this race. I think they're doing 29 at the fastest speed down here, and 24 to 29 is a huge difference. So yeah, if the group's going faster than you, that's like just opening up a really large gap. So unfortunately, what I think happened, like with the officials, is when they neutralize in cycle right now, I think they counted 1 minute from where they stopped them to now, but not 1 minute from what the original gap was. So again, not to beat a dead horse, it's over. It's like not a big deal or anything. And I don't think anyone was going to catch the front group anyway with 2 laps to go and a 15-second lead. But yeah, I just remember there was a lot of controversy over it on the day. So being that we have video, I just thought I'd point it out. So anyway, we're going to neutralize right now, and then the race is going to restart with 2 laps to go.
Are we stopping? Yeah.
So this is where the groups were separated with 2 laps to go, and they're underway. Group 2.
All right, so here's the restart, and this is basically a race for 8th place.
2 laps to go.
You see, Ashley was in, I think, too hard of a gear, in my opinion, and then she missed her clip in. But her pedals were so hard at the beginning. You always want to, well, my opinion, you always want to shift to a lighter gear at the start of a race, just so you can accelerate off the line and not have to worry about so much tension in the legs or tension in the chain. Just quick acceleration. You have to anticipate that you're going to have to shift within, say, 5, 6, 10 pedals, something like that, depending on how fast the group starts. But you always want to be in a easy enough gear to be able to accelerate smooth and quickly off the line. And it's the same way with corners. Anytime you anticipate a corner slowing down, you should be multitasking. You should be on your brakes and downshifting at the same time, just my opinion. Or you can downshift ahead of time. Like now, if you're coasting, you should have downshifted, in my opinion, 1 time. Sometimes you don't have to, just depending on the speed. But often you'll see people are just over geared, and anytime there's like some coasting going on and they're in that heavy gear, then it takes a real lag on their acceleration to get out of the corner, and you can lose. In our races, you can lose a lot of spots because we have so many riders, and as soon as you lose acceleration, there's 4, 5, 6 people who are going to pass you. It's a little different if you can get away with it with a smaller field, but I just speak about it because I don't want people to form bad habits and then they get into a larger field, and it's going to penalize them a little bit. All right, so we're going to be going into the bell lap now. You can see the speed is picked up. And I think that's Audrey on the front right there. Audrey is one of those people too that has a really powerful motor, just good power and can go for a long time. But yeah, she definitely picked up the pace here to get it started going up the hill. I think here too, you got to take the approach from a little bit wider to the right just to get the better angle there, especially with that big bump there. It's not bad though. Anytime you're single file, you have your pick of lines. You can, it's not, there's no real penalty in it, as long as you're able to take that line without slowing down. So again, going back to teamwork and a little bit of being unselfish, Ashley was thinking of taking the lead here and leading out Ellen, but just for a little practice, because more often than not, they're going to be leading out Marlena. So Ellen goes to the front here to just see what type of pace she can hold for what duration. They're not racing for a really high spot, so they don't really care about the position. Obviously, you want to come in. So Ellen goes by, tells Ashley to jump on her wheel, and then she's just going to try to keep a good tempo, just doesn't want people coming around her at this point. And when you're starting a lead out or doing a lead out, you want to go at a pace that's fast, but not so fast that you can't maintain it, or not so fast that you're going to wear out your sprinter. But you also want to go fast enough where no one can comfortably come around you. If anyone's going to try to come around you, they're going to have to use a lot of energy, something that they can't sustain. So, you just want to go at in theory, you want to go at the slowest speed possible, but the fastest speed necessary. So, good line by Ellen here too, taking a wide approach, gets to carry her speed, can pedal through basically the entire time. Same thing here, you're taking an out in, out approach. Didn't stop her cadence. As you see, it stayed at 96, 97 the entire way. I think here she should have accelerated a little harder though. She was kind of waiting a little bit to accelerate, and by that time Jules gets the jump on her, and if you'll see right here, Jules comes by on the left, got the jump on her. So now Ellen, being tired, trying to accelerate, she has no acceleration, when really she should have been at 400 watts right when she came out of that corner with Ashley on her wheel. Ashley's doing a good job of sprinting and she's making up ground, but her big mistake is she's just in the wind, and you're not going to be able to sprint. Being that she's lighter, she's going to take a lot of power if she was going to go by anyone, so she definitely should have tucked in a little better and just stayed in the draft as long as possible. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching, and let me know if you like the technical breakdown or more of our back and forth banter. Thanks for watching. See you later.